I played over 200 video games in 2024, and in this video, I'll be ranking my top 10. "2024 was an amazing year for video games, although you can probably say that for both 2022 and 2023 as well. In fact, this year was so good, I had to entirely redo this top 10 list twice. I originally streamed myself ranking everything, but when I looked back, I just wasn't happy with where I ranked some things. And if you look at the final list that should be up on all my socials, Twitter, Instagram, and Blue Sky, shameless plug, there are a few things moved around compared to the original part 1 and 2 videos that I released in the prior weeks. Speaking of, if you have seen the previous 2 videos on my channel, you can see where I ranked every other game that I played this year. The first video ranks all the games that came out before 2024, and the second one ranks all the other games that I played in 2024. So if you don't see something in this top 10 list, it might be in there. And if it's not in that video, I'm going to quickly go over the games that I didn't play so I don't get your hopes up. When it comes to what games were in people's top lists for the year, the Game Awards is usually a good place to look. And as it happens, I played all but 2 games that were on the Game of the Year nomination list, which is a first for me. Black Myth Wukong wasn't one of those games, however. While this game looks absolutely stunning, the setting and theme of the game just never appealed to me with all the trailers and everything else about it. The game does act as a sequel to Journey of the West, which I technically only really know by name. I haven't read the original book, read the original story, or even watched like OG Dragon Ball, which takes heavy inspiration from it, so it just never appealed to me. The other one is Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree. I really dislike the Souls genre. I'm not a fan. I have given it multiple chances, and I'll wholeheartedly admit that I'm not good. I'm just not good. I also do not have the patience with the games. So the DLC was just never in my radar, and honestly, since I've probably made most Soulsborne gamers mad already, I'm gonna say it, Night Rain looks like ass, and I really think the game is gonna be set up for failure. Helldivers 2, despite it being extremely popular within my friend group, was something that just looked meh to me. I'm the only one in my friend group that didn't play it. Everyone else did. I played the first Helldivers years ago when it was free on PlayStation Plus, when PlayStation Plus was in its early days of giving free games. I wasn't too fond of it, but I was also younger, so I'd rather give that one a second chance first. I've never been a big horror game player, so the Silent Hill 2 remake was never gonna get picked up by me. Despite how great I've heard the remake is, I haven't picked up the series yet. Maybe I will one day, but right now it's not in the cards. Senua's Saga Hellblade 2 is just kind of there. I think the concept is cool, but the game's just never appealed to me. And the last game I'll quickly talk about before I get into my top 10 list is Stellar Blade. I was very tempted to get the game as I heard great things about combat, but the timing of its release was kind of just what prevented me from getting it, as I was at the tail end of playing 3 JRPGs at the same time. Now that all that's been cleared, let's talk about my actual top 10 games of 2024. Echoes of Wisdom is the first time in the mainline Zelda series that Zelda is playable. The game follows the same visual style as the Link's Awakening remake, and now takes place in Hyrule. Visually, the game looks absolutely stunning in this style, and lets the cartoony abilities that Zelda has at her disposal become much more fitting. The Tri-Rod abilities are simple and creative for the series. The wide variety of echoes at Zelda's disposal are great, and no 2 playthroughs are exactly alike depending on which echoes are used and what areas you go to first. It offers a wide variety of playstyles. And Zelda's ability to become an ethereal Link to use his abilities for a short time are great, but I really only found myself needing to use those during boss fights just to speed up the tedious process of them. The boss fights could have had a bit more work done, because those are probably the part of the game that I enjoyed the least. The overworld itself is a fairly good size and does a good job compacting Hyrule as we mostly know it throughout the various generations, specifically this previous generation with Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. The collectible amount isn't overly crazy either, which as a completionist is a godsend, with might crystals being the most plentiful thing to find, which are used to upgrade your Link abilities, pieces of heart, and a few other odd items to make various automatons, which I never used the automatons in my playthrough. You get them so late, like halfway through the game is when you can actually unlock them, but if you don't have specific echoes, you're not going to be able to unlock them entirely. So I found the automatons were kind of pointless to add in the game in the end. The story is nice and simple, but there wasn't a really good twist like other games in the series have, which is why Zelda Echoes of Wisdom comes in at my number 10 spot.
Count Luis gave us a dream to fight for.
Metaphor ReFantazio is one of the best games that I played in 2024. And the only reason it's all the way here at number 9 is simply because I have not finished the game yet. In fact, in making these year-end ranking videos, I'm further behind than where I'd like to be in the game. I won't delve into too many story details because of how fresh the game still kind of is, but for being around 20 to 30 hours in, I am completely immersed by the world and characters. And my favorite characters so far are Strahl, and somebody I can't talk about because spoilers, but they are available relatively early on still. Metaphor's combat is damn near perfect. I absolutely love that if you're over leveled, which is about 3 levels over an enemy, you can just straight up slay them in the overworld without needing to initiate turn-based combat and still receive decent experience and money. And the turn-based style that the Persona series is known for returns with a few slight changes. The big one being that there is no downing enemies to get an all-out attack, but instead powerful team-up attacks that use up more actions in your action turn bar. The turn-based combat has some difficulty to it, as I've lost quite a few fights because I didn't fully take advantage of the positioning system or my archetypes to their fullest. And the archetype system is also really, really well done. It vaguely reminds me of the weapon system in Tokyo Mirage Sessions, but only slightly. I will be attempting to platinum the game, which means I will be grinding out every single archetype to their fullest potential, and that is why Metaphor ReFantazio ends up at my number 9 spot. Now, if you were going to tell me that a fighting game was going to end up in my top 10 games of 2024, I would call you crazy. Now, I wasn't expecting to have gotten into Tekken at all in 2024 either. But after they announced Clive Rossfield as the 4th DLC character for the game, I decided to give the game a try. And after putting in over 20 hours and getting the Platinum Trophy, I could say that Tekken 8 was my sleeper hit of 2024. Now, as a guy whose fighting game background comes from a couple obscure fighters like Persona 4 Arena Ultimax, Melty Blood for some reason, and primarily Street Fighter 6, Tekken was a whole different beast that I absolutely enjoyed playing through. Let me preface this by saying I am absolutely ass at fighters, but the faster-paced gameplay that I've experienced in Tekken compared to others is much more my style because mashing buttons can do stuff for you, more so than in traditional fighters. The story continues from the grand overarching story that Tekken has made, and the climax was absolutely out of this world, pun intended. The soundtrack of Tekken 8 is up there for my fighting game OSTs, and the amount of stuff you can do with character customization is absolutely insane. I knew nothing about the series going into Tekken 8, and I literally sat down and watched 3 hours worth of lore videos and story summaries of all the other games aside from the Tekken Tag Tournament series. And if you're even the slightest bit curious about the series, give Tekken 8 a shot. It's easy to get into, offers a nice basic auto combo system, hit one button to do stuff for those who aren't great at fighters, and it absolutely has some of the funniest arcade mode endings I've seen in any fighting game.
A reunion, when spite and sorrow are harvested to feed the planet.
I love the Final Fantasy series, despite only having played 5 games in the series before playing Rebirth. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is a great entry in the franchise and a fantastic sequel to Final Fantasy VII Remake. Rebirth continues the story from where Remake ends, with the party leaving Midgar and making their way across the wide, beautiful open world to find and stop Sephiroth. The game isn't exactly a one-to-one with the original, as it fleshes out events much more. There are a couple changes that, as a Kingdom Hearts fan, has me screaming Tetsuya Nomura's name to the heavens in pain, confusion, anger, and other emotions across the spectrum. I never played the original Final Fantasy VII. I know the general plot of the game, but that's really about it. Rebirth does a great job modernizing this old game, fleshing out the characters way more, and making the world feel more full of life and or death where it needs to. The gameplay is exactly the same as Remake, with a few tweaks to tighten it up, make it smoother, and the biggest obvious difference is the addition of Yuffie, Red 13, and K-Sith being added as party members, each with their own strengths, weaknesses, and playstyle, with my personal favorite of the 3 being Yuffie and her ninjutsu arts. They are super good. The amount of minigames and challenges also offer a wide range of things to do in the game, but are also the bane of my existence, as some of the challenges, talking about you, Chadley, are the main reason that this game isn't higher. So that's why Final Fantasy VII Rebirth falls at my number 7.
Huh? Huh? Eh? 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 どうなってんだこりゃ!
What happens when we give the lovable, naive Ichiban Kasuga information about his supposedly dead mother not being dead? A wild and wacky Hawaii adventure! Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth is one of the best entries in the Like a Dragon Yakuza franchise. Not only does it improve on the turn-based system that was introduced in the first Like a Dragon game, it piles on the drama, comedy, and other wild Yakuza tropes tenfold. The game takes place across 2 perspectives. Ichiban and the Hawaii crew searching for his mother and uncovering the dark secrets of the Hawaiian criminal underworld, and Theory's favorite, Kazuma Kiryu, which follows him uncovering an operation involving the now dissolved Tojo clan and Omi Alliance remnants, along with the rest of his party members. The balance between Kasuga and Kiryu definitely reminds me of my time playing Yakuza 0. However, the story isn't as fleshed out for the 2 like 0 was. The story itself isn't bad by any means. It's really good. It has some really great highs and some odd lows, with my one major complaint being about the ending, as it feels like there's a lot of missing details. It feels like we're missing a lot of context. Other than that, the game itself is great, offering both the Yokohama and Kamurocho maps of the older Like a Dragon games and the brand new Honolulu map, which offers a massive amount of content to do during and after the main story. I probably spent 90% of the game doing as much side content as I possibly could, and I cannot wait to return to Honolulu in Yakuza Pirate in Hawaii, which comes out in a month from when we're watching this. Dungeons of Hinterberg is a charming journey of deciding the future of oneself. The game focuses on 2 main points. The first is the main focus of the game, which is going out and tackling the many dungeons scattered around Hinterberg's 4 distinct zones. The second is a social aspect where you build up relationships with the various cast around the hub town, sort of like Persona, where you're limited to who you interact with each night. Each one of the social links offers a different reward in the form of charms, which can allow you to boost your stats and give special perks, access to new services, special moves, or the best gear in the game. They even have a dog social link, and you get to name the dog. The game is full of charm and has a very unique art style that feels very comic book / visual novel-esque. And while the game feels like you only have a set amount of days before you reach the ending, it's not as enforced as you may think, giving you all the time you need to build up each of the characters' relationship and do what you want around Hinterberg, like collecting monster parts for those dancing monster costume guys. The calendar system is more or less just there to progress the story on certain days. A thing with the game is that it is possible to do all 25 dungeons in 25 days, but you can take as many days as you need to play through all of it and do everything you want. Combat is simple and doesn't do a lot of innovation within the genre. You have a standard 1-2-3 combo and a dodge roll. Your charms that you equip give you more bonuses like damage, defense, offense, and then your special moves that you equip do a variety of different abilities, but each of them have a cooldown afterwards, so use them wisely. The award for the most unexpected game of 2024 for me goes to Balatro. Who'd ever think that a poker hand making, deck building roguelike game would be this damn good? This year, I played more roguelikes and roguelites than ever before, and the aesthetic that Balatro has absolutely entranced me, even though I didn't play it until it was nominated for Game of the Year. The game is so much fun with the variety of jokers, changing what each run can do, and no two runs will ever be the same from various decks to pick from, antes to choose, and luck of the draws. I've almost unlocked all the jokers, and just need to do a few odd objectives to get the rest. The game is extremely simple and accessible, and the collaborations with all the other indie games and their Friends of Jimbo packs are the cherry on top. I think the only way to make this game better is to do what Yu-Gi-Oh! Did that one time.
Card games on motorcycles.
Card games on motorcycles!
Card games on motorcycles.
He is no mere titan. He is time itself, and time cannot be stopped.
Wait for me, Father. I'll be this.
I enjoyed the first Hades well enough, but I thought that some of the systems they had in place weren't the best. Like each weapon was tied to all the rewards on the route, and once you got them all, you'd have to either up the difficulty to get more or switch weapons, or do both. Hades 2 not only fixes that major glaring issue that I had with the first game, but they made the progression system even better. I had maybe 10 to 16 hours in the first Hades compared to the 70 I have in Hades 2, and the game is still in early access. In over the 80 runs I have gone through in this game, I have found almost every boon, collected every trinket, raised all but one character's heart levels. I'm looking at you, Medea, and your rare spawn rate. I have nearly maxed out my prestige for all the decorations around the base camp, and almost maxed out each weapon in its various aspects. It's essentially just the aspects I need to level up, and that requires doing like the hard modified runs and beating specific bosses, or just waiting for Charon to deliver that material to you. Malinoi is a great protagonist, and the supporting cast of the gods, shades, and titans make every interaction that much better. The overarching story interactions are all interesting, and they have me wanting more. My personal favorites are the Echo and Narcissus story, and I am really intrigued as to what Prometheus and Dora's relationship is and what this memory she's forgotten has to do with him. The gameplay is just as tight as the first game and offers an even better pool of weapons and boons to pick from across your runs. My personal favorite is the Black Coat, and the Arcana cards that buff Malinoi in various ways make it so you can either build yourself as strong as possible or give yourself new challenges to play through. With the remaining mysteries in the game, I cannot wait for more updates to come out and the eventual full release of the game. Which means this game could end up in next year's top 10 list too, because it is not a full release yet. Persona 3 Reload comes in at my number 2 by mere margins. My top 2 games of the year are extremely close. P3R is absolutely the best way to experience the Persona 3 story, as this was my first time ever playing Persona 3. This is one of the best stories in a video game that I have experienced. The combat is very clean and very familiar to Persona 5, aside from the few small changes to keep it authentic to the original. The main party has a cast of great characters, each with their own flaws that they work to overcome, but the other confidants are very hit or miss. The ending of the game, despite me knowing it from the get-go because of being on the internet for years, still hit me really hard. Persona 3 would have been my game of the year if it wasn't for its one massive flaw: the episode Aegis DLC. Now, it's not a bad DLC by any means, but it does have a lot of issues by playing it after the main game. I put in over 100 hours for P3R, and I didn't want to put in more than what was necessary for the DLC. But when you're put back down to level 20 to 30 and essentially need to grind all the way back up to level 60, 70 by the end of the DLC, it might have been higher, I'm just spitballing. It was either do brain dead needless grinding all over again, or use the Reaper exploit, level up, and blast through the DLC, which is what I chose. The story of the DLC is good, but the gameplay is weak just because of the need to grind. The final fights of the DLC were actually really great, but aside from that, it's just very mid, which overall puts Persona 3 Reload down to number 2 in my list. What do you get when you combine the aesthetic of Mario Galaxy, the tightness of modern platformers, and a whole bunch of video game characters who have been on the PlayStation? You get my game of the year, Astrobot. This game is one of the best video games I've ever played. As a guy who just loves video games, this is an absolute love letter in so many ways. Not only did this game, through its many references, make me remember my time playing those older games if I had played them throughout the years of my life, it was also a great way to introduce me to other franchises and games that I maybe didn't know about, or was like, I knew of them and like, oh, that's a cool reference. Astrobot is super tight, a super fun platformer that has a few tough challenges here and there, but nothing overly challenging that a bit of practice doesn't help with. All the additional content in the game has been added for free, and I'm excited to see if they'll add even more content at future dates. This game is designed with a lot of love for video games, and it absolutely deserves my personal game of the year. And that's a wrap on the 2024 season. 2025 is set to be another great year with potential for the massive GTA 6. I'm personally excited for Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii and Judas. And plus, there are so many games that haven't even been announced or given release dates yet that could turn the whole year upside down for everyone. And Nintendo just announced the Switch 2, and we're going to be getting more details about it in April. I'm excited to see what they've been cooking up. My 2025 is not going to be as packed as 2024 was, as I have decided to try and spend a lot less on games this year. And there's so many free games that I still need to play through on my Steam backlog, my Epic backlog, Nintendo Switch Online, and PS Plus. I hope you enjoyed watching, and leave a comment below on what your game of the year for 2024 was. And if you like this kind of format for a video, leave a comment. Let me know. I might do more top 10 lists throughout the year on just a variety of different topics if this does well. Be sure to follow me on all my social platforms at Tony's Game Lounge on Twitter, Blue Sky, and Instagram, twitch.tv/Tony's Game Lounge, where I focus on RPGs, visual novels, and Final Fantasy XIV. And be sure to check out the Tony's Game Lounge podcast, where I cover the weekly news in the gaming industry and chat with just a variety of Twitch streamers and other gaming YouTubers. Thanks for watching the video, and we'll see you guys back here next time in the Game Lounge.